And for the next 40 years, the Yom Kippur sacrifice, in which the scapegoat was taken out of the wilderness, pushed off, but yet the red cord that was around his neck put over the heckle, the door of the temple, when that scapegoat was pushed off, every year that scarlet cord turned snow white. It was a miracle that was put in place by revelation that went on for hundreds of years. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the story as I have received it. As the Ark of the Covenant is the most holy artifact on planet Earth. It is representative of the Creator's throne in heaven. In heaven, you've got beasts with 4 heads that when they shout holy, the universe shakes. They've got 6 wings. They've got eyes all around. The Ark of the Covenant, which typifies the throne in heaven, doesn't have that. It's got 2 angels with the 2 wings that cross up across the back, 2 wings down in front, literally forming the throne. So Moses was told to build the ark according to the pattern that he'd seen in heaven. He is not there to make images of those awesome beasts that cry holy before the throne. But it is still the representation of the throne of the Almighty upon the earth. The Ark of the Covenant, one day in the year, is to be approached by the high priest. He goes in with the blood of bulls and with the blood of one of the twin goats. First of all, with the blood of bulls, he is to take in incense, a fire pan full of smoky incense from the altar of incense, placing it before the Ark of the Covenant. As he faces the Ark of the Covenant, the wings of the angels form the back of the seat. He's literally before the throne of the Almighty. He is to take the blood of bulls, which is the atonement for himself, his sons, and the nation, and he is to sprinkle it with his right index finger 7 times on the east end of the Ark of the Covenant, which would represent the left hand end of the throne in heaven. All the time, 7 times, every year, 7 times only on the east end of the Ark of the Covenant. Just about every representation you see of the Ark of the Covenant out there is wrong, except for what we see here on the Jewish sword maker's Sword of Solomon, and what you see in the great Secret of Solomon's Temple. Remember, the poles that were used to carry the ark. In Solomon's Temple, it says they drew the staves out to one end so that the ark could be seen out in the holy place, but they weren't seen out in the holy place. What does that mean? It is that the staves pushed the curtain out so it could be seen that the ark is in place. The staves pushed the curtain out on each side of the altar of incense so that the ark could be seen out in the holy place, but couldn't be seen out in the holy place. That's the only way that it can be seen and not be seen. You know it's there. And the high priest goes in and sprinkles the blood on the east end, which is the left-hand side of the ark. Then comes the time of Nebuchadnezzar's siege, which we read about in 2 Maccabees chapter 2, verses 2 and following, where Jeremiah and several of the faithful priests received a vision to hide the Ark of the Covenant, to take it out toward the place where Moses spied the Holy Land. But remember, the siege wall is all the way around Jerusalem. They're not going to get through the siege wall. But how are they going to get it out? This is how they know, because they receive a revelation now how to activate the sand hydraulic elevator system. Now, after I went down to Egypt and now constructed this with the help of John Fiala, now the question remained, what was the mechanism, the apparatus that was used for these 2 brass pillars standing out in front of the temple, that it says the capitals, which are solid brass, hundreds of tons sitting on top of 31-foot columns, why are they 5 cubits tall? And then after the siege, they're only 3 cubits tall. But when they break down the brass capitals, destroy them and carry the brass away into Babylon, the capitals are 5 cubits again. Because 2 cubits 42 inches had sunk down inside of these hollow capitals, activating the hydraulic sand elevator system so they could get the Ark of the Covenant off the Temple Mount through the cave system and put it in a stone sarcophagus that Solomon had constructed so the Ark would remain there for a long, long period of time. Now we go 1,000 years into the future. In the stone roadbed outside of Damascus Gate, where all the executions took place, on that day, which is the 14th day of the month of the Aviv, while the Passover lambs were being sacrificed on the Temple Mount, the Lamb of God was outside the north gate of the city of Jerusalem, outside the gate, outside the camp, where an altar in stone was constructed, and this is where the Almighty set it all in place. When Yeshua cried with a loud voice, "It is finished," the earthquake and the rocks rent. The ground was open at his feet. Yohanan, standing there, saw as a Roman soldier came up and pierced his side. Out of his side flowed blood and water. It went out of his side, down the earthquake crack, and the earthquake broke open the stone sarcophagus, and the blood of Yeshua fell on the west end of the Ark of the Covenant, which is the right hand of the throne of the Almighty. That is what John saw. And I, John, saw this. He saw when the Spirit, which had descended upon him and remained upon him, then when he said, "It is finished," the Spirit left down upon the Ark of the Covenant, followed by the water and the blood. And this he said, "There are three that bear record in the earth, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these three agree." If we have received the testimony of men, the testimony that God gave of his Son is greater than the testimony of men. And this testimony, the Spirit, the water, and the blood, this is a testimony that God gave of his Son. That is when, as Yeshua said, this cup represents the renewed covenant in my blood. I will pay the death penalty for you. You broke the blood covenant. I never broke the covenant. I will die in your place and thereby renew the covenant offered at Mount Sinai for you to be priests and kings. And in Revelation chapter 1, Yeshua has now made us priests and kings because he paid the death penalty for us. The Ark of the Covenant still sits there and will be there until the Almighty reveals this, because that is when the covenant will be confirmed. This is what Daniel speaks of. By revelation, the angel gives him this very revelation. And he, the Messiah, will confirm the covenant with many for 1 7. In the midst of the 7, now that he is the prince that shall come. That prince that shall come is the one who will bring the abomination of desolation. That prince that shall come, because they receive not the love of the truth, it says in Thessalonians that God will send them a strong delusion that they might believe the lie. What is the lie? He just got through saying it. This day of the Messiah's coming will not transpire, except first there come the rebellious stand, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, so that he as God sits on the ark of the covenant of God, proclaiming that he is God. Because they did not receive the love of the truth, he, the Almighty, will give them this delusion. How can he sit on the Ark of the Covenant and not die? Because those who do not want to believe the truth will be allowed to believe a lie. And that is the beginning of the last 3.5. Ladies and gentlemen, the confirmation of the covenant has not yet transpired. The confirmation of the covenant is going to transpire at the end of the existential war against Israel, in which the Almighty, if he did not intervene, Israel would no longer exist. The blood of bulls and goats and lambs and rams can't take away sin. They're a constant reminder the death penalty is owed. Year after year, feast after feast. And then Yeshua, who never broke the covenant, died in the place of the guilty party so he can renew the covenant with us. That's what the renewed covenant in his blood is all about. Now we can be priests and kings because he has renewed the covenant with us. But what happened? Because the overspreading of transgressions in Israel among the priests, the religious leaders, he made those sacrifices desolate on that level. That year, for the first time, and for the next 40 years, the Yom Kippur sacrifice, in which the scapegoat was taken out of the wilderness, pushed off, but yet the red cord that was around his neck put over the hekel, the door of the temple, when that scapegoat was pushed off, every year that scarlet cord turned snow white. It was a miracle that was put in place by revelation that went on for hundreds of years. But the rabbis all acknowledge and have to admit that 28 of the Common Era, when Yeshua was crucified, that scarlet ribbon never turned white again. That is why the rabbis come up with what has replaced the sacrifices, because even before the temple was destroyed, 40 years before, it was shown that the Almighty was no longer accepting the Yom Kippur sacrifice. Why? The Messiah, once he had paid the price, sat down at the right hand of the Almighty. Yeshua said the temple was going to be destroyed. He said it. Who destroyed it? Did Rome destroy the temple? No. The Almighty destroyed the temple. You don't think Rome is going to get away with doing something the Almighty has not ordained. You don't think that Nebuchadnezzar is going to get away with something the Almighty has not ordained. He calls Nebuchadnezzar my servant, because he did what the Almighty said must come to pass. You transgress me, you're paying the price. He doesn't change.